Peter's Drive, episode number 2. Are you ready to discover the untold story behind the Middle Eastern food revolution? Buckle up and get ready for a wild ride as we bring you Peter's Drive, the podcast where interesting and tasty things collide with business. From a leap of faith to the top of the food chain, this is the story of Paul Tran's vision for Mediterranean cuisine in a market dominated by burgers and pizza. With a team, a passion, and a trip to New York, this brand is now unstoppable, serving up incredible food and generating a following that's bigger than its number of stores. So, are you ready to learn about Paul and how he finds the next big thing? Tune in now for the ultimate feast for the senses.
Oh man, you are a kid. I graduated in 2000.
2000, so
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
How was your experience at Saddleback?
I really loved it. It's probably some of the most memorable years. And I actually say my high school friends are actually much closer. We're actually much closer than my college friends. We still hang out like maybe once every 2-3 months. We try to, despite all of our lives and all that stuff. But it was great. It was, I feel like it was not one of those pretentious schools. And because the Asian population was such like kind of a minority, I feel like all the kind of Asians were really nice and they just weren't trying to like cause issues with each other. It's more like, we're the minority here. Let's just try and make it work and all that. And I also played volleyball, which is the best experience of my life. I love it. I still love it to this day. And my first love was there, and it was just such a great experience overall. I hope you had the same experience.
I did have a really good experience. I was really involved. I played volleyball for like 1 year, and then I switched over to tennis afterwards.
Okay, right on.
Yeah, and then I was part of ASB, so I had opportunities there. So leadership, which was like an incredible experience. We would go to ASB camp, and that was kind of like eye opening, like just the amount of like people and parties and at Santa Barbara.
Oh, that's so cool. I'm so glad you made the most of it. And tennis was actually, so my family grew up playing tennis. My brother was like one of the top in CIF for tennis. And I tried to do tennis and volleyball at the same time, but because they were both seasons at the same time, I had to choose. So I chose volleyball for the wrong reasons because there were a lot of cute girls there. But it ended up, I actually fell in love with the sport, like wholeheartedly. So bad intentions, but it ended up working for the good.
What was the position you played? Were you like a setter, or were you?
I was an outside hitter. And you actually know, at Saddleback, there's not a lot of tall people. So me being 5'7", I was actually middle hitter for the first year. And then eventually people suddenly had growth spurts or something. So the next year I ended up being outside hitter and played the rest of my career as an outside hitter.
Wow, you could jump then, because I'm 5'6" and I wanted to be an outside hitter, but they put me as opposite. And that's
right on.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that means you can set too. That's critical, man.
I wanted to hit.
Oh, that's cool, man. That's cool. That's cool that we have some really cool common ground.
Yeah. So I guess let's talk about a few things.
Sure.
I guess on the topics of ego, because you mentioned ego and how it like it's important to, I guess, keep it in check when starting a team, and can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. What did you read about? Where did you gather that? Because I do talk about it a lot, but I'm just kind of curious to know what context you got it from.
Oh, yeah, sorry. It was in one article. I forgot where, but I was just looking at all your articles just to kind of get some background. So I forgot which one I read exactly on.
Cool.
But I think it was when you were trying to like form your early team and just the topic of like the ability to trust people, and if you see someone like better, then you let them lead.
Yeah, and thank you for doing the research. And also, I just also want to preface by saying, thank you for even for jumpstarting the podcast. That was a lot of courage, and I watched the first episode, and you got like a heavy hitter right off the bat. So I was like, holy shit, this is a really hard act to follow, because your guest was like, amazing. But anyway, as far as ego is, I believe that ego is the enemy. That's like a quote from Ryan Holiday, who huge thought leader in marketing, branding, and just the entrepreneurial space. And it's throughout my whole career, I've looked back at all the times where I have failed when it came to losing clients or unfortunately closing some restaurants. And I believe that the root of all the failures and the lessons was because my ego got in the way. And all the biggest successes, I noticed not just what was there as far as like best practices and lessons learned, but I noticed that there was an absence of ego. And I can always recount through my career that I've always gotten myself into businesses where I don't know it all. And I guess I love the challenge of the fact that I know nothing. And because I know nothing, I am forced to admit that I don't know it all. And I'm forced to actually acquire knowledge, and I'm forced to build a team of people smarter than me. So if I want to build an incredible organization, I need to hire people smarter and better than me, and not let ego only get people who are willing to say, yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir, and get people who are more compliant. I'd rather have people that are better, have better perspectives, and they challenge me, and even have the courage to tell me I'm wrong. And because of that, I feel like my organization my various businesses have grown much more rapidly and much more successfully. And I'm not involved in the businesses as much. So I get to hang out, trade NFTs, be with my family, interview with you, because I have people better than me that can run business on a day-to-day basis. So there's a lot more that can be discussed, but that's pretty much ego in a nutshell for me.
Thank you for sharing, Paul. Yeah, I feel like I've been struggling a bit with ego as well. And then I just saw a quote about like, it's not you against the world. It's like kind of like you should change yourself in order to like kind of change the world. So I think that kind of resonates with myself.
Oh, who says that?
I think it might be Anise Nin, but I will look it up and send it to you after this.
If you can't find it, then you could just take credit for it.
It's not me. It's not me. It's wiser words. Okay. And another question I had is this issue that I've been noticing. It's the issue of trauma. So I think it happens a lot because I've been trying to connect with other individuals. I really enjoy meeting people. So there's a Facebook group called like SoCal Asian Connection, and I just like see people. I try to connect people and stuff. And some of them, we're discussing things, and the issue is like trauma, and kind of like within our own households and how it affects people. I was just curious about like your experiences with this kind of like topic.
For sure. So yeah, I love. I mean, nobody wants to go through or wish trauma on anyone, but I not to sound too cliche, but I believe that manure is like the best fertilizer for growth, right? And also there's also quotes like every falling stone is like a stepping stone, and there's always other things, like it doesn't matter what happens. I mean, not that it doesn't matter, but it's less about what happens to you versus how you respond to it. And I am a Christian, and I one of my favorite thought leaders is Pastor Rick Warren at Saddleback Church. He says, you can be predisposed, but you don't have to be predetermined, meaning you can, go through trauma. You can wake up with, you can be born with certain, cards that you're dealt, and that's not something you can control. But what you can control is your attitude, your mindset, and what you can do moving forward. I'd say some of my best memories and best moments of my life have come from trauma as well. One trauma I could think of easily is just I was married at one time with my first wife, and she ended up having an affair with one of my close friends, and that was a pretty brutal, traumatic moment. But I mean, because of that, I actually, a lot of ego had to come into play there too. I can't say it was all her fault. A lot of ego got in the way for me as well. But I learned to work through it, learned to be a much better spouse, and ended up finding someone I believe was just a much better fit for me moving forward. And so I'd say trauma you definitely need to endure it. You definitely need to grieve. You need to truly grieve through it. But then there will be a point where you can't let it consume you anymore. And there will be a point in time, and only you can know what it is when it is, but it's time to take that manure and turn it into fertilizer to something more fruitful and productive. So hope that answers your question.
I think it does. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing about that, Paul. Okay, on maybe a little bit more lighthearted note, what
You got deep
inspired
real quick.
Sorry, sorry. It's a topic that, like, I mean, I'm dealing with it too. Like, I have like issues in my own family that I'm trying to like fix and resolve, and it's just like people are struggling, and I have like a lot of weight, but just try to maintain the good attitude is really important.
Yeah, it's hard to advise because everyone has a different story. So if you ever want to talk about it, let me know, because I'm happy to listen too. But yeah, it is a hard one because trauma is just so unique and it's real. And all the normal advice where, cheer up or, just get over it. It's unhelpful and it's more counterproductive than not. So I hear you, man. Hopefully you have friends that can help you get through it. And sometimes it just takes a little time, but I don't know, knowing you and what I've seen, what you post and how you think and how our conversations are, you have a great positive mindset. You'll eventually get through it. So, but yeah, everyone goes through it. So you're not alone.
Thanks, Paul. What inspired you to go against conventional wisdom, like when you wanted to enter the restaurant industry?
Yeah. I'd say it all goes back to actually high school at Saddleback. I had a friend who was part of this like multi-level marketing company. And, the typical mindset of those folks they're always about inspirational quotes and challenging people to not do the regular or conventional stuff. And one of my friends, Michael Nguyen, he actually was a tennis guy. He was part of this multi-level marketing company, and he introduced a book to me. And I'm pretty sure you've heard of Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. At that time, there's a lot of stuff that I don't remember from the book, but I remembered one concept. And that was, if the perfect career path was to study hard, get a job, go to college, graduate with a degree, work for 40, 50 years of your life, and retire comfortably. If that was the right career path, number one, why is everyone graduating with something they don't end up doing? Why is everybody miserable? Why is everybody in debt? And so it really pattern interrupted me. Like, well, maybe this isn't the right career path and so that kind of set me on a path to be like, okay, so obviously I need to do something different. I need to do something completely opposite. Because if everyone's doing it this way and everyone's miserable, I mean, it makes sense to do the opposite. So that set me on a path to just do all sorts of unconventional, weird shit. And that's what pretty much got me. I think that's what also helped eliminate my fear and the normal conventional wisdom, like, oh, you should only start a restaurant if you have culinary experience or if you've run a business before. Partial ignorance and just curiosity just blew past those checklist items, and I just got into it and used some of my college loan money. And my friend was just a really good cook by hobby, not by trade. And we just like, hey, let's just do some really stupid shit right now while the consequences aren't bad and we don't have a lot of obligations yet. And pretty much the rest is history.
How did your parents feel about some of your decisions early on?
Well, yeah, this is the whole Asian parent thing, right? So, looking back, I did something really horrible. So when I started the restaurant, I was at a fork in the road where I was on my last semester of college and the store was getting really busy and I just couldn't balance both. And so this fork on the road was, the story I told myself was, if I dropped out of college right now, and just solely focused on the restaurant, I could always go back later to college and finish it. But if I pretty much tried to do both at the same time, both would suffer. My health would suffer, and I would risk the business going under, and I would always regret the fact that I didn't give it 100%. And so I decided to just drop out of college my very last semester of school at Long Beach State. And I realized it was the best decision ever, because I've stayed in the restaurant and franchise world ever since, and it's been very rewarding. But all that to say that when I dropped out of college, I didn't tell my parents for 2 years. And to be honest, and I actually told them that I graduated. I actually had them attend the graduation ceremony as well. And I picked up an empty diploma, and like for 2 years, they're like, because during that time, they don't give you a real diploma. So I just put up the whole facade. I feel horrible because I would kill my kids if I found out they did that to me. But I knew that they would criticize and they would ridicule and they would and I just didn't want them to, be humiliated in front of their friends and family and stuff too. So I actually hid it from them for 2 years. And I also wanted to avoid the conflict of them too. So 2 years later, they were really heartbroken when they found out. But I told them that, if I were to tell you that, you probably wouldn't have approved, then that would have been really bad too. And they admitted later that would be how they would behave. But we got through it. They forgave me, and now they're pretty proud, and they're telling other folks that they own a few businesses. So still eventually made them proud, but a really weird, unconventional, dishonest route too.
That's awesome. I feel like I'm similar in some ways too. Yeah, I really like the weird and unconventional. Well, what were you like when you were growing up as a kid?
I was I had middle child syndrome. In retrospect, I gave my parents a pretty hard time, a pretty hard life. So now that I'm much older and I realize how much they went through and did for me, I can't thank them and appreciate them enough. I try to visit them every week, and I try to take care of them. And I'm also providing a little tiny income for their retirement as well. So all these things have provided me that opportunity. But as a kid, total piece of shit. I was really mean to my brother and sister. I think the middle child syndrome is true, where, the oldest typically get all the respect and responsibility. And by the way, am I allowed to cuss? I'm so sorry.
Go for it. Yeah.
And also my little sister was the only girl, and she was the youngest, so she got spoiled. So I think as a middle child, there just wasn't a lot of attention. And so I feel like I was always doing bad shit to get attention. And I think that also forced me to do things unconventionally a little bit easier. So, did a lot of bad things. I stole stuff as a kid. I was really mean to my parents and my siblings. There was a point where I eventually turned things around, but I also was very curious, and I don't know if I had good friends, but I just was always had a support system of friends that were there for me. So I never went as far as being part of a gang or taking drugs and the really, really bad stuff. But I was just like a cranky, moody kid.
Same.
But I'd say my friends and sports were were lifesavers. I think.
Awesome. What are you excited about for the year and your goals for 2023?
Yeah, great question. I try not to follow any goals because I feel like goals tend to be, for some reason, it's hard for me to follow goals. Especially, it's one of those unsustainable things where you always have really big, grandiose goals at the beginning of the year, and then part way somehow you just like fall off the grid. So I'm trying to focus more on what do I fear, and what is just one thing that would make things a lot easier. So the one thing is I've learned psychology wise, people like to win, but they like very much more not to lose. Do you know what I mean? Like people would rather not, they would feel like shit if they lost money, but even if they earn like $1, they're just like, whatever. But I'd rather use fear in my favor. So this year, what I'm trying to focus on is just, I've been having a lot of health issues as far as like I have gout, and I'm going through some arthritic issues. I'm just trying to be better about moving around more, eating a little bit better, and exercising, because I tend to work where I just sitting down there for like 10, 15 hours, like nonstop. NFTs don't make it easier. And then another thing is I'm trying to just make sure my restaurants run profitably and successfully through the year. And I'm not sure if you saw my LinkedIn, but I recently joined a restaurant company to help them with growing through franchising. It's called Roll 'em Up. It's really, really delicious, but I'm trying to help them grow through selling more franchises for them and growing more stores for them. And that's what I spent, the last 10 years of my life doing. I've been helping restaurant chains grow through franchising, and just trying to immerse myself more into Web3. I know I'm talking about trading NFTs a lot, but I also believe in the technology and what's possible too. And I'd love to actually marry blockchain with restaurants, because I feel like restaurants tend to be really laggards when it comes to adopting new tech. So I'm still trying to figure out how restaurants can have an edge and, address inflation, higher, wages and food costs with that. Overall, just trying to be a better husband and better dad to my kids as well. So those are the thoughts that come to mind right now.
Yeah, I'm kind of interested in also about like how you like take care of your health, right? Because I mean, you in high school you're active, you're a volleyball player, and now you're saying you're having some health issues.
Yeah, yeah. So my dad has gout, and so a big part of gout is hereditary. And also, if you're familiar with gout, a big contributor to it is when you're eating shellfish. My first restaurant that I ever opened myself was a seafood restaurant where we ate like pounds and pounds of like shellfish to get our recipe right. And I feel like it's probably contributed to it. And also stress is also a big contributor too. So all these things don't help when it comes to creating gout flare-ups. But yeah, that's what I'm trying to just drink more water. I'm trying to just walk around more and try not to stress too much, but I get involved in too many things. So stress is just normal. So I just need to offset that just little by little.
Do you ever have time for like a hike or anything? Because I think hiking is really, really nice too, nature and stuff. So.
I love hiking, and yeah, I could probably use more hikes. Yes. And I know that you do that yourself.
I do, and I know of some like really cool like trips like out to like Lake Arrowhead. There's like these hot springs. So yeah, if you're ever interested, more than happy to be a guide or something. So
oh yeah, we'll chat about that. That'd be really cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess on the topic of like overcoming an obstacle or a challenge,
Mm-hmm.
what was one of your biggest obstacles or challenges that you overcame?
Yeah. Well, one of them was dropping out of college and hiding it from my parents. So the best advice is to lie to your parents and not tell them for years. Horrible advice. When it comes to overcoming obstacles, gosh, it's more for me. I've actually always found out it's a lot of ignorance and a lot of just mindset. And when I say mindset, so when I started my first restaurant, not having culinary experience, not having a lot of money, and how risky the restaurant was, none of that really occurred to me. I think I just wanted to do it, and I was curious about it, and I just did it. And I think it's because I was just so stupid and ignorant. Like I didn't realize just how hard it was. So, but if you look back, if you knew all the odds and you knew all the things that would be obstacles, you probably wouldn't have taken action, right? So I'd say I claim ignorance is a big part of my success. And the second thing is mindset. I think I also love personal development, and I read a lot of books and I read a lot of like quotes, and a lot of them help me. Like, for example, tough times don't last, tough people do. And I also learned that whatever you're going through is always just a moment in time. This too shall pass. And I've also, I think I've just been ignorant and overly I'm also a very optimistic person too. I always overestimate how easy something is or how good things are. And sometimes I'm knee deep in some really shitty stuff, but I guess because I'm so delusional in a positive way, I eventually get through it. And it never is, it is horrible, but I always get through it. So, I mean, that's pretty much what comes to mind when it comes to overcoming obstacles.
Speaking of delusional, I was listening to, I think it was a creator of Ruby on Rails, and he's just mentioning like how some of the early crypto adopters, they had to be kind of delusional as well, just to like think of this thing as like seriously think of it like, as a valid store of value, I think. Yeah. Something along those lines.
Oh,
Yeah.
David Hannemeyer Hansen.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Have you read Rework?
I've not.
Okay. Rework by David Hannemeyer Hansen is one of the top 5 books of all time for me. Like the best books I have ever read. It will, if you're talking about changing your mindset and how to think differently, Rich Dad Poor Dad started me on that journey, but Rework totally reworked my mindset, like truly. So highly recommend. So yeah, I'm glad you love David Hannemeyer Hansen too.
Yeah. Thank you for the book. I will definitely check it out and consume it, and then maybe post it like a Twitter thread on it too as well. So that's awesome. Please
do. You'll love it, dude.
And I guess in the beginning days, like not a lot of people took you seriously.
People still don't.
They still don't. Like, come on. There's like, there's a lot of great work I've seen for you guys, and just that's.
Well, remember, some people will never take you seriously, but that's not a prerequisite to doing good work anyway, right? So I joke, but happily, but it is also true. But anyway, sorry, go on.
Yeah, no problem. I had another. Okay, so your spirit animal is the honey badger. Right?
Yes.
Can you talk more about that? Because I mean, it implies like you're creative, rebellious in a sense, but just a little bit more on why.
Yeah. So you're familiar with the honey badger video that went viral, right? So like over a decade ago, when I saw that, I couldn't stop laughing, and it was just incredible, and it just stayed on my mind. And it started off as just a huge joke, and like I want to be a honey badger. I want to like not give a shit about things either. But I guess I love the honey badger because a couple of things. I'm an introvert, believe it or not, and I love actually doing things on my own. And I've always seen, with a couple exceptions, honey badgers like to hunt and do things on their own. Another thing is the honey badger's behavior is very it's fearless. It doesn't really care about the odds, whether it's like bee stings and poison and large animals like lions and all that. It doesn't really care about the odds. And I'd like to believe it's partially courage, and the other part is it just doesn't care. And I want to have that spirit where I don't care about the obstacles, odds. I don't care about how people think and what their opinions are. Not like I'm not compassionate about it, but I don't want it to get in the way of doing important work. And I love the fact that it just goes against the odds, and it's just a badass animal. So I feel that's the reason why it's my spirit animal. But I ended up using that as the mascot for my NFT project that I created last year. And also I've actually used I did have like a sales curriculum where I'm just teaching entrepreneurs about how to sell, and I called it the Honey Badger Seller, which was like just a curriculum that I did temporarily, where I just held some workshops and showed people how to sell, even though you're an introvert, even though the odds are against you. And I just love that animal. I don't know if I want to actually meet one in real life, but that's how I would associate myself.
That's really cool. And I it's so weird because I was talking to my friend too, and he's telling me you should have done this podcasting like 2 years ago, and I'm like, yeah, you're right. I should have done this. Like it would have been. I was doing other things too. I was trying to like build community around myself, start like a hiking group because I was like social media is kind of like it's really taking a strain. I feel disconnected, and it's just hard. Adulting is hard.
That's true, but it's okay. You know what they say, I think I wrote that in an article not long ago, right? Like the best time to plant a tree was like 20 years ago, but the next best time is right now. So I'm glad you did it, and maybe you probably wouldn't have appreciated or kept with it if you did it early on. Like, but you needed to be like sick and tired enough, and you needed to be motivated enough. So I'm glad you're doing it, and I can't wait to see you continue to blossom from that. There's
Yeah.
no.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. That's all.
I'm just yeah really thankful because like I think you were also like one of the drives for it because you answered one of my questions in your Substack and because I was just thinking this guy has all this experience, he's been successful, so it's easy for him to sell, and then you challenged me a little. You're like, okay, here's this like playbook, and the ball's in your court, hit it back, I think.
Well, you also challenged me too. Like you reminded me that not everyone is at the same stage as me. So you're also keeping me compassionate and aware as well. So yeah, thank you for as well. I'm glad it works both ways.
And I saw on your Twitter profile that I think the background is like ice climbing or canyoneering. Is that like one of your hobbies?
Glacier hiking.
That
Yes,
sounds super intense.
Not as intensive as it looks, but yeah, one of my favorite places to be is Alaska. And about 6-7 years ago, I flew out to Alaska. And one of the tours I wanted to do was like going on a helicopter, landing on a glacier, and going down the deep crevices. And I had a tour guide that pretty much helped me go up and down. But because I was a beginner and my first time, they didn't let me go down like the hardcore ones where you could potentially get stuck down there. So it looks good, but it was a very introductory course. But I loved it, and I'd love to do more of it. When I get the time. Well, I got to make the time, right? But yeah, it was a really cool experience. But if you love hiking, this is a really cool thing to do.
Yeah, looking to eventually get into it, but it looks a little expensive. So maybe,
It is. It is. I had to
So-
save. Yeah, it's a lot, but it's a really cool experience, though.
Recently you went to the Philippine blockchain week.
Yes.
Care to tell us about that experience?
Yeah, it was incredible. It's really funny. It's really cool how again, this is also random curiosities and ignorance kind of leads you to, just like the restaurant idea. So I loved and I was obsessed with the idea of blockchain and Web3. So I ended up just launching the Crypto Badger Clan NFT project for the hell of it. And I just wanted the best way to learn is to do it. And so I did it. And even though it's not one of those crazy hyped NFT projects, number one, it was still really profitable. I made quite a bit of about close to $30,000 in like 2 months. I also was able to build a pretty good community of people who just love blockchain as well. And we still talk on our Discord to this day. And we've been able to trade NFTs profitably. I guess it caught the attention. It was enough to catch the attention of a Web3 blockchain investor. And he asked, his name is Jay Ha. And it also attracted, Bored and Hungry, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So because Bored and Hungry was also immersed into the Web3 space too, and they knew that I did franchise work, I ended up doing a couple of consulting gigs with them, and I helped them bring Bored and Hungry out to the Philippines. But apparently all my work caught the attention of one of the Philippine Blockchain Week producers. And he reached out to me and asked if I'd like to come out and speak about my experience. And even though speaking in public scares the shit out of me, I was like, wow, this is one of those rare opportunities. You cannot turn this down. And I flew out there and I spoke, and I love the experience because I think while all the other speakers were talking about blockchain from a really nerdy technical side, I was able to talk about it from a newbie, a creator, someone who's not like totally technical. And I was a lot more relatable, and it pretty much engaged with a lot of folks and made some friends, and also some consulting opportunities. But yeah, it all just happened because I was just doing some tinkering and helping other people without any expectation of compensation. And apparently it just led me down that path. But yeah, I was able to go to the Philippines, fell in love with the country. I also made a tiny vacation out of it. I also flew my wife out there, and we hung out in Boracay, which is an incredible island, by the way, underappreciated beaches, and helped a lot of people, and it was just a really cool experience. So yeah, that's what happened.
That's amazing. Speaking about Bored and Hungry, like me and my friends were also talking about NFTs, and we're excited about NFTs. And I was telling them, I was like, whoa, they're actually like they painted a restaurant in Long Beach with the apes. So it's like I think they use the commercial IP or something for the ape.
Correct.
In the restaurant.
Yes.
And I was like, dude, it's happening. Like crypto's taking over the world, one restaurant at a time. So I was really excited about that moment. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, the guy behind it was Andy Nguyen. So he's always been known for being cutting edge and like merging different cultures together. So it made sense that Andy and his team were the ones to do it. But I think they're just scratching the surface, right? Because blockchain is so much more than just monkey ape JPEGs, right? It's also technology to also address inefficiencies in the restaurant operations, making businesses easier to run. There's also use cases where people use blockchain to manage loyalty, which is what Starbucks is doing as well. And so there's just a lot more work to do and a lot more room to grow there. But I think it's a great first start. So I'm proud of them.
How do you think NFTs will shape the future of business models?
Great question. I think that right now, because it's so new and because blockchain is so vague, there's so many use cases, it's hard to pinpoint one or two use cases. And because of that, people always lean towards what's the easiest to understand. And the easiest to understand is these silly JPEGs. And it does the blockchain disservice because, as you know, because you're very tech forward, like, it's just so much more than pictures. So right now it's just not being portrayed properly, accurately, and completely. So everyone thinks it's a scam. And there's also bad actors as well that don't help the cause. But I like to believe in it, like back in early 2000s, when you're still a kid, people were also thinking the internet was a scam, right? And people focused too much on the internet, whereas later, as we now know, now that the internet is way more mature, people stop focusing on the internet and they think about the companies and things that are built on it, right? They think about the companies that were made possible from it, like Amazon, eBay, all that stuff, right? Same parallel. Like right now, people are just too focused on NFTs, like people are too focused on internet back then. The goal, NFT, when it's successful and widespread and it's widely adopted, is when NFTs kind of fade into the background, and it's more like the companies that were able to build something on top of it, like Reddit, like Starbucks, like they're not even mentioning NFTs and no one mentions the internet in like on top of Amazon. Like it's supposed to be the engine the foundation that makes things possible. It's not it itself, if that makes sense. So the technology will, because it's ledger based, that a lot of record keeping administrative stuff will eventually be automated, be verified. A lot of jobs that are responsible for record keeping will cease to exist. And it's just like a calculator too. Like now that you have a calculator, you no longer have to do you can now actually do even more complex things, much more meaningful things. So that's how I think about blockchain.
That's cool. Sorry, my computer it fell asleep.
Oh, I thought you turned down the lights to set the romantic mood.
Give
No?
me one sec, Paul.
Oh,
Sorry.
you led me on, dude.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Yeah. Technical glitch. Um, Very cool. And I guess you can also like be hired to speak. Can you talk about like how yeah, because you're available to be hired to write, speak, or consult in Web3 entrepreneurship or sales, right? Can talk about that?
Yeah, yeah. To be honest, it's more of like one of these accidental opportunities because typically I get asked to do like speaking events and like for the Philippine Blockchain Week, all expenses paid and it was really cool. Even though speaking scares the shit out of me, again, I always remind myself that I need the ability to help and serve more people to be more important than my fear and my need to look good and be comfortable. So whenever I get asked to do a speaking event, knowing that I can help a ton of people, and also it leads to business opportunities as well anyway, I usually try to take, and also it creates content, right? So many people struggle to create content where these opportunities are like content as well, which is the key to the future when it comes to business. So I get asked to speak to franchise companies when it comes to how to sell franchises. I do get asked to speak on how to build restaurant organizations that scale. And even if I'm not like a blockchain specialist, I still get asked to do that too. It's weird. And also speaking on how to be an entrepreneur while raising family and all the other obstacles and stuff like that. So yeah, if anyone is interested, happy to talk about speaking and share my experience. I don't know everything, but I hope to be able to share at least some, what matters more is like actionable stuff in the right mindset. So hopefully I can help there.
It's very valuable. Since you spoke once, doesn't the fear go away? Like, shouldn't you like?
I think it probably eventually gets easier if I did it more consistently. But I think it's just all mental anyway. So, I think repetition will help.
Got it.
But it's also a lesson to remind people that sometimes the fear never goes away, but you just need to be more interested in serving people than whatever fear and whatever fake story you're telling yourself. And I don't know if you are a stoic, if you believe in stoicism, but I've also learned that people who worry, they suffer twice. And sometimes it's more painful in your imagination than in reality. So thank goodness for all this personal development woo-woo shit, because it really helps me. It really helps me, again, create the delusion that helps. So there you go.
I think to talk on that topic, also like kind of like the vibes you give off kind of like affect, your opportunity as well. I think I noticed that. So even in my own mindset previously, I had a lot of negativity and stuff. And one of my friends was telling me, you got to kind of get rid of that. And you guys got to be like more, I guess, open to things within reason to some extent, I think.
Yeah. And actually that advice, no offense to your friend, because that's well-meaning advice, but it goes back to what I said earlier, where when people are going through trauma, like the worst advice is to like, well, just get over it or just turn it off. Like, oh, I didn't know that. Thank you for telling me that. I think it's more like, hey, I know it sucks. But you just got to figure out a way to get through that or use that in your favor, or you know what I mean? Like use that, not be so delusional that it doesn't exist, but just know that it's probably always going to be there, and you could use this negativity and this trauma for good if you choose to. And it's just a different way of looking at it, I guess.
I've also read that there's like kind of this sort of strength in vulnerability, or also strength in humor as well. So I'm trying to kind of learn about those and implement those topics into my own life.
Yeah. You're familiar with shit posting on Twitter, right?
Of course.
I want to be better about that, to be honest, because
I do too.
I want to be able to shit post because apparently that grabs attention and that makes people laugh. And I feel like when people laugh, people are more willing to listen. And you know how they say people have short attention spans? I'm also learning that that's not necessarily true, because there are people who binge watch Netflix for hours, like my wife and I do with K-dramas. And there's people willing to look at shit posting all day long. So the idea that people have short attention spans is just not true. And when you tell yourself that story, you're going to lose out on a lot of opportunity. It's more people have shorter consideration spans, meaning people are willing to dismiss you immediately if you're just not sharing anything of any value or any delight or any pattern interrupt. So if you focus on those things and pattern interrupt them and make them actually like, what is this about? You'll find them going down rabbit holes. Like you and I are both guilty of going down rabbit holes. So we can take best practices from that. So anyway, that's another topic for another time, but I hope you'll agree with me, but yeah.
Yeah. On the topic of shit posts as well, I saw Elon Musk, he just tweeted out like a period. And then like it wasn't, anything. It's kind of like shit postery, and it got a ton of interaction. Everyone's just like, and I thought it was hilarious because everyone other tweets are like, so like I guess try hard and stuff. And Elon, Elon is Elon. So
yeah. So yeah, totally agree. And I think memes are people downplay memes, but they're just so important to the culture. So I find myself using a lot of memes, and it gets a lot of cool attention and engagement too. So yeah, just trying to learn how to crack that code and pattern disrupt them and hopefully lead them into something actually more valuable as they move forward and as they continue to follow and I get to command their attention.
That's awesome. And also on the topic of NFTs, like if you're trying to explain them to, say, your parents, like how does that like get across to them? Or
I don't even try. Well, just not for my parents, but just people in general, right?
Yeah.
And usually I just say it's. I guess I've been surrounded by the NFT space so much that I don't. Just like your question about like starting off in sales, like I haven't had to explain it to anyone. Usually I just say it's a new technology that allows people to keep track of things. And I usually say people are not using it to its fullest potential right now. But that's what it is. And so usually when they say that, they're like, what do you mean by that? And that allows for a deeper conversation. So, but that's usually the hook that I use to hopefully at least pattern interrupt them or make them more curious to learn more. Yeah. Or you can just say, I also say it's a digital collectible. I usually say back then, people used to just copy and paste or right click save digital items. But blockchain technology has allowed for it to be impossible to do that. And I just leave it at that. And people are like, how does that work? And then I get to have a deeper conversation, but I don't want to lose them so immediately. So that's usually the approach.
That's very cool. Let's see what else. I think you had some questions about like podcasting potentially, or do you have any questions for me about that, or?
You know what? I guess what would be, again, if you don't have an aim right now, that's totally fine. The fact that you got started makes me really, really happy. And but kind of curious, like, what is the goal for the podcast moving forward? Do you have any aspirations yet, or you're just trying to perfect and get better at, questioning and production and content?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. I think it's just to continue to like learn from people that I respect and admire. So because everyone just has like really cool stories, and I just enjoy connecting with people. And just see what I can do from there. Maybe because it's kind of like a portfolio as well, right? So I'm putting out like content, so maybe that will produce opportunities for me as well. So just to show your work in public.
Yeah,
I believe
build in public. I love that.
Build in public,
and you can take these and chop it up and use it over and over again. And are you an introvert?
I'm an extrovert. So
okay. Well, it's okay. You're an extrovert too, but I've also learned that me being an introvert, I actually get really, it's not that I don't like talking to people. I just, I get drained very easily talking to a ton of people. What I've learned about creating video content is I can just do it once. And now sometimes when clients ask me things or people ask me questions, I can just say, oh, actually just watch this video or listen to this episode, you'll get your answer. And I can talk less, which is great. So that's another reason why I'm okay getting through the fear of public speaking and creating content. So it's just a great way to scale anyway, right?
Yeah, I found like it's right now it's just like kind of like rewarding and in a spiritual way, I guess, just to like I feel like kind of like this is maybe my purpose, and yeah, it just feels really good. Like I don't know how to like kind of explain it, you know? So
Well, I'm proud to hear that, man. I will say don't overcomplicate it. And I think the way you're doing it right now is perfect. And as long as it's easy to do, I mean, just keep making it easy, because it's my best advice is I think a lot of people are so focused on trying to make the podcast perfect that they end up creating so many barriers to where they just stop and give up. And that's going to be like 90% of the people. And if you can just get through that and just actually make it more easy to do versus more perfect, you'll be ahead of the competition, and you'll just naturally get better anyway. And you'll get better hosts, guests, and stuff like that. So just keep up with it, man. I'm proud of you, dude.
thank you so much, Paul, and thank you for always like sharing like your positive mindset too. Like it's just like it's really helpful.
Oh,
And
my pleasure, man. Hopefully it could be helpful beyond the shit posting. Yeah.
we need I want to get better at shit posting too. So maybe we can talk about that and see if we can brainstorm some things or
Yeah, feel free to send me stuff, and I'll be like, if this is like stupid, like let's post it.
That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
Are you excited for the weekend? Anything fun planned or?
So this weekend, I'm excited. Yeah, there's gonna be a lot of relaxation, and my kid plays baseball, so taking him to his baseball game, and a lot of the usual chores I put off until the weekend. But it's nice. It's nice to be with family and not have to feel like I have to go anywhere. So I'm excited. Usually I engineer my life to where I have one day of just nothing to do. It's good for mental health, feeding my family, taking care of my family. And yeah, it's necessary. What about you, man?
I have a lot of hiking and a lot of hanging out. So fun activities. And
Oh,
also
good.
I'm going to be probably editing the podcast, so I do that too.
Hopefully our discussion isn't too edit heavy. When I record stuff, I actually don't edit my stuff.
Oh, okay.
Unless my guest asks me to edit something out. But again, it goes back to like making it so easy, because if edit is just a pain in the ass, I won't do it. So I usually tell people that I like the ums and the ahs and the mistakes and all that, because that makes it feel raw. And yeah, so anyway, have fun with that.
Will do. Yeah. Thank you. I don't know what else to ask.
Well, we'll sign off right now, because I actually got to head out to a meeting, but I enjoyed this. If you want to do another, I don't know, part 2 or part 3 or something, please let me know. Happy to hop back on, because it's fun chatting with you anyway. And yeah, happy to help with the journey.
Thank you so much, Paul. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure, man.
Okay. Have a good one.
All right. You too, man.
Okay. Bye.
And that's a wrap on another exciting episode of the Peter's Drive podcast, where food and business intersect. We hope you enjoyed learning about the story behind the Middle Eastern food revolution and the vision of one man who saw a gap in the market and took a leap of faith. From incredible food to a massive following, this brand continues to make waves in the world of cuisine. Thank you for tuning in, and we can't wait to bring you more inspiring stories and delectable insights on the next episode. Until then, stay curious, stay hungry, and keep listening.